It's interesting. You don't come back the same person. So this is what I would wear every day when I was in. They've actually changed the pattern since I've been out. But if you see right here, this is your unit patch.
In October of 2015, 69% of the year's high school graduates headed straight to college. But what about the 180,000 young Americans that enlist in the armed forces every year?
When I was in high school, I knew I didn't want to go to college. I hated school. I decided to go into the military because I wanted to travel. I graduated early so I could leave. I joke with my mom because I grew up in an abusive alcoholic family. And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, if I have PTSD, it's from my childhood, not from my service. It's me and my parents actually have a great relationship now, where before, like when I joined the military, I wanted to get the hell out because I didn't want to be in that type of relationship. And after I left, my mom got sober.
And then I got a phone call, hey, want to join the Marines? And I knew at that moment I wanted to do it. I did about 5 years active duty, where I got to do 2 combat tours to Afghanistan, and a MEU, which is, I was with the Navy, and I got to go to like Spain, Guam, a lot of other countries. And I returned to Anna Hancock after my service, and then I applied here at Cal Poly as an agribusiness major.
In the Marine Corps, I was a combat engineer. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Life events happened and decided to join the military. I just made that decision, and then as I was in, I decided not to re-enlist. I got married 10 days before I went to boot camp. Me and my wife have plans to start having kids, and it's just really tough to have kids in the military, so we decided not to make it a career.
I was also in an aviation unit, so we were all pilots, and I was looking at another 13 years, and I was like, my body cannot keep up with another 13 years of doing this. And also when I got divorced, I thought I wanted to get remarried, and if I ever wanted to have children, I didn't want to be like one of those couples who were constantly deployed and separated, and their kids were pretty much raised by family members. And I didn't agree with that philosophy of having someone else raise my children.
Can you truly come back from war and live the college experience at Cal Poly, just like any other student?
I would like to thank all of our military families here and our veterans, of course, that are here with us today in our active duty. And I would like to thank Welcome Home Military Heroes for your flag line. Thank you for holding that flag.
Definitely life experiences. A lot of recent veterans have been to war, and it's just a completely different experience to have that affects people immensely. It's hard to sometimes just connect with people, especially like after recently getting back. There's like a transition period for sure.
We help with more of their like transition to college life from being in the military.
It's hard. You go from strict discipline to doing whatever you want, and you get kind of lost in it for a while. But you go to reserves once a month, and it gets kind of confusing. You get back in that mood, and you come back and you're trying to talk civilian talk, and everyone's giving you that, military talk, and everyone's giving you that weird look.
What do you think the biggest difference is between student veterans and then people who are students and haven't, been a veteran before?
I think there's differences, but we're still students. At the end of the day, we're students like everybody else, and we have more experience, and we have a different perspective in education and what you're doing and your purpose. But overall, it's the experiences that you have. You are more like knowledgeable.
The age gap mixed with the differences in experiences and lifestyles is kind of tough.
Imagine you've experienced war, and the person next to you is complaining about the food at Metro.
There's been a few times where, to me, it's just common sense and common courtesy. Like, I could be standing in the front of the line waiting to pay, and a student will walk up just right by me and like put their stuff down and go and pay.
Kind of petty everyday problems, like going, one thing is like going to combat and then coming back and seeing people, like, you go to a fast food restaurant and like people are complaining because they got pickles when they didn't order pickles. It's like, all right, well, is that really a big deal? Like, do you really need to make a huge scene because you got pickles? Like, just calm down, eat your sandwich, take the pickles off if you want, and deal with it, right?
But this is me on the ground. It's called the front leaning rest position. It's for doing push-ups, and so that was me.
Young kids in my major and stuff try to tell me about military lifestyle, and like...
And they haven't been in it?
No. and so that could be frustrating.
Usually they don't find out. I usually wear like military shirts and stuff, but they never connect the points. I never tell them. But when like we talk and like, oh my God, that's cool, and like they ask, and they always ask the same questions.
A lot of times one of the first things that people ask me is like, did I kill anybody?
Do you go to war? Do you kill anybody? Like, stuff like that, or what do you serve, or what, what you do.
It's hard to reconcile being both a veteran and a Cal Poly student, but these Mustangs carry around more than just their backpacks.
And they turned on a few of the guards and they killed them. Because the guards there for the protection for us were Afghan. And it was the Afghan army. And so they turned on a few of our people and killed them. And so just going through all of that, like, I don't watch the news because the news is so inaccurate.
Veterans who are returning home, and they have you can't see their wounds. They're struggling. They're going through divorce. They're getting involved in alcohol or whatever because they keep living like they're still deployed. So I'm hoping they'll start paying attention and maybe go think another veteran, especially our Vietnam vets, because they weren't welcome home. So I just hope that people will start paying more attention to things that are going on these days.
I've been in San Luis Obispo in uniform. And I think just to get an understanding, someone has been spit on while they were in uniform in their face in San Luis Obispo, because a lot of people in San Luis do not appreciate veterans and they blame veterans for the war. And so there's a lot of rich liberals in San Luis Obispo County, and they do not support the military at all. Like if you go to Texas, it's completely different. They love veterans. They're very supportive. People will come up to you all the time and like thank you for your service.
It's hard. It's hard. I think I've had it a little bit easier than most because I've had an awesome community to come back to. But when you have that brotherhood, you don't get that too much in the civilian world. You can call anyone up in the middle of the night if something's going on. Here you can't really do that.
Lynn Carey once said, "I was a proud veteran who served my country well, and to those that would listen, I had many stories to tell."
I just have appreciation for life. Like people get mad about someone spanking their kid, and I'm like, if you only knew what happened in other countries, you would not get upset about that.
I was in 9/11. I remember doing little cards as a kid, thanking the military members. And when I was overseas, I got those letters. And I remember when I was a kid, I did the same thing. So it's pretty cool.
Well, when you have that random person comes up and thanks for your service, it's pretty cool. Especially when it's someone who served before. In Vietnam, we have a Vietnam vet come up and thank you. A guy who did it, before you. It's an honor to hear from them.
I'm just happy to be here.
Why do you want to do the documentary?
I wanted to do this documentary because I knew there were veterans at Cal Poly, and I knew there was a statistic and how many veterans we had, and it turns out we have about 50 veterans. But I wanted to humanize the statistic because I didn't actually know who these veterans were, and if I did know these veterans, I didn't know that they actually were veterans. They didn't make that clear if they were in my classes or if I crossed paths with them. I was really curious about what it's like coming from being active duty, so being in, say, Iraq or Afghanistan, and then coming back and trying to assimilate into Cal Poly and be just like your average Joe student, because I cannot fathom what that's like because I haven't experienced that, and so I wanted to go out and meet people who have.